Movie Fanatic Nate, coming your way. This time I'm going to do one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. I'm coming at you today for a review of the motion picture Metalstorm, The Destruction of Jared-Syn, 3D. So this will be a movie review slash also a 3D Blu-ray review, special edition 3D Blu-ray plus 2D Blu-ray that was recently released by Shout Factory, Scream Factory of this quote-unquote epic quote-unquote motion picture. So I had seen this famous cover probably in the sci-fi section on VHS, you know, back in the 80s and 90s. I imagine the cover's familiar. Frankly, the cover is pretty amazing in the vein of the stuff that was going on in the 80s, like, you know, Indiana Jones covers, Star Wars covers, and, you know, all these kind of whatever, all these sci-fi slash adventure covers of the day, which were painted, which I think are better than, I don't know, I guess it's just because I grew up with those covers. Long story short, the artwork, you know, is pretty fantastic for this movie. So, like so many movies in the video store in the 80s and 90s, and zeros and stuff like that, I just, you know, you can't watch everything, and never, obviously, as good as the cover is, it never interested me enough to actually get it. I don't know, this looked more like the cover looks more like a sci-fi movie than, I guess I was more into horror and stuff, not that I didn't like sci-fi, but whatever. Long story short, I never saw it, so I just, you know, Shout Factory just released the Blu-ray and a first ever home video 3D presentation, and I figured, what the hell, I just blind buy it. I can't remember if it was just maybe in the low 20s, maybe it was 22 or 21 or $23 or something like that. So I did a blind buy. I probably wouldn't have done the blind buy had it not also been 3D, just that kind of sealed the deal. So, and also being a fan of, you know, quote-unquote kind of fan of Charles Band and his Empire days. This is one of the earliest Charles Band. It should be noted that Charles Band directed this movie. I think his dad, Albert Band, his dad Albert is credited as the first credit as the, you know, one of the executive producers, first billing. So it's basically like a Charles Band, you know, family production. His brother Richard Band did the music, which is fantastic. It should be noted that it's very fantastic. It said that he had like 10 days or something like that to do the score, which I find kind of unbelievable, whatever. But the music is fantastic back when Richard Band. What's ironic is, you know, when they just started out, you know, Charles Band had more money for movies, Richard Band had more money for actual orchestras. And as years go on, it's just like the money gets less and less to a point where he's just, Charles Band's making movies in just a garage now, and whatever. So it's ironic that, you know, you think as time goes on you'd get more money and more means, but it was the opposite. So anyway, this is one of the most early, one of the earliest Charles Band movies that actually came out in 1983 during the whole resurgence of 3D craze. It said that Jaws 3D came out in July, and I think this came out in August or something like that. Universal bought this movie. Charles Band was just shooting it with no distributor, and Universal bought it, figuring since they equipped all these theaters for 3D, they might as well have some 3D stuff to put out. Anyway, on to the review. So, unfortunately, the movie, I watched it only in 3D. I haven't watched the 2D version, so I can't really comment on that. But I've only watched it in 3D, and we'll just talk about the movie first. Unfortunately, like so many things that Charles Band has been involved in, I think I just did something. Oh yeah, Trancers. Trancers was kind of a, when I did the rewatch and review of those films, I mentioned that the Trancers idea was kind of a ripoff of Terminator, as so often happens, as I said in the Trancers review. When you have something successful, like in this case we'll just say, you know, Mad Max, and also the sci-fi, the recently, you know, just, you know, slam bang success of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and stuff, obviously you're invariably going to be filled with all kinds of, you know, rip-offs. So this is kind of a, in a way it's, you know, Mad Max meets Star Wars, whatever. It's kind of a sci-fi-ish Mad Max. you basically have this character who I don't even know what the hell his name is, it doesn't matter, this lead star guy who's just, it's the same thing over and over. You've seen it. There's this warlord who's just, you know, played by this guy who's trying to get just total control. It's the same thing over and over that you've seen before, and you'll see again and again after this movie comes out. Warlord wants, you know, supreme power over everything. This guy is just a Mad Max ripoff. He just starts the movie with this kind of, you know, half-ass whatever battle. You know, this hero comes in contact with, you know, bad guys that are trying to get him, and he's got this kind of cool, in a way, low-budget way, vehicle. It's just like a tin box vehicle he drives around in, and that's his Mad Max vehicle, whatever. I'm not going to go into so much of the story, which is easy to do because there's not a whole lot of it. Basically, Kelly Preston, pre-Twins. This is pre-Twins. I don't know, is this post-Christine? I don't know. But Kelly Preston is this, you know, prospector's daughter who we just have a brief scene with, you know, her and dad prospecting. I don't know how long they bought this mine in forbidden territory, and they've been, you know, mining it. I don't know how long, but this day we're introduced to them. They find this amazingly big crystal thing, and as soon as they come out of the mine celebrating about that, bad guys show up with this robot, half man, half robot with cyborg robot metal arm, which is kind of cool. Fantastically using the 3D, you know, whatever, the arm comes out and goes, you know, right into the screen, which was fantastic in 3D and whatever, and undoubtedly kind of probably designed for the 3D element in mind. He squirts this really stupid idea, Charles Band idea, where he squirts this liquid on him and he kind of gets transported. The idea isn't bad, but the idea of just squirting liquid on him and it just gets on his clothes and that transports you kind of mentally to the bad guy part, and just whatever. Anyway, long story short, they find this crystal, come out of the cave, dad gets killed. I can't remember. Oh, she's hiding in the cave the whole time, so the bad guys go away not knowing she's in there, and good guy shows up after a run-in with someone in just like a very slow 15-20 mile an hour car chase. You know, even at those slow speeds, I mean, it's still kind of cool in 3D and music and whatever, Richard Band music and stuff. So, I mean, it's just your, you know, unfortunately, it's kind of just your, you know, B-movie, average B-movie fare, just, you know, rip off of Mad Max, whatever. It doesn't mean that, you know, some of the 3D gags aren't good, or some of the, you know, this movie co-stars Tim Thomerson, which in a way I wish that Tim Thomerson would have been the lead. Of course, later on, you know, a few years later, Tim Thomerson would go as soon as I stop. And I was going to wait for the siren to end. It ends right then, so that's cool. Tim Thomerson obviously would go on to be the leading man in several of Charles Band's things in the future, namely Trancers and stuff like that. So it's just kind of sad in retrospect seeing Tim Thomerson in this movie, who I would regard as, you know, definitely more whatever, just, you know, radiant of an actor than the lead guy in this movie, just taking, like, you know, sidekick status just for a brief period of time. You know, the sexy, what's her name? The sexy Kelly Preston, just, you know, as soon as she ends up, you know, the hero comes across the scene of the massacre of her dad, not long after that happened, and she comes out of the cave, and obviously the main hero and her hook up, and not in that way, but I mean, you know, pair up, and not long after that, she's kidnapped by the bad guy in some goofy kind of just sci-fi way, and transports with this little crystal figure towards the screen. It's kind of lame and cool. It's just like, yeah, it does that, and she actually the bad guy teleports her just from, we don't know how, I guess because she's weak-minded, another Star Wars ripoff. Teleports her directly to him, and then teleports in her place, teleports a far less attractive being, this whatever he is, electric mutant monster guy, to have a brief battle with our hero, who is simply defeated by, you know, I guess the hero tricks this electric monster to step on water, which will be his ultimate demise. Anyway, long story short, Metalstorm is a great title. I'm not exactly sure what the hell it refers to, if it refers to the metal armed guy or the metal vehicles. I'm not sure what Metalstorm, refers to. The title, it's a great title. As is alluded in the making of documentary, the title, The Destruction of Jared-Syn, is misleading because the Jared-Syn is the bad guy in this movie, the overlord who wants control of everything, who's at the very end of the movie almost succeeding, but Richard Mall, who is actually very soon at this same time, actually during the filming of this movie, it said that he did the Night Court audition for the famous sitcom Night Court and got it like mid-production of this movie only because he was bald. Or actually maybe because he was bald, because he shaved this, the movie. I guess they gave him $500 extra to shave his head for the movie, and he's like, no, I'm not shaving my head. And he's like, how about $500? Okay. So, anyway, Richard Mall is in it as a pretty good bad guy. Like, I'd say he's the makeup they do for these Cyclops, instead of putting an eye in the middle, is kind of, when you hear the word Cyclops, you probably think of eye in the middle. They just kind of cover one eye with makeup and have the one. That's kind of a cheap way to do Cyclops. Richard Mall's whatever, he's kind of cool with his deeper voice as this bad guy or whatever, who would later, battle our hero with a funky looking ninja sai thing, and obviously during the fight, Richard Mall goes, right towards the camera in a fantastic 3D whatever. So long story short, this movie's obviously completely, totally shows its budget. I guess more or less underwhelming. Tim Thomerson's probably the best thing about the movie, as he is about the Transfers movies as well. He's got some of the best lines, which apparently were probably some of the best lines were actually improvised by him, which makes sense. Tim Thomerson's, like I said, I kind of said it in the Transfers review, is just, I'm a kind of a fan of him. Whenever he's in something, I'm like, oh, Tim I kind of have a special place in my heart for him. And like I say, I find it a tragedy that guy, Tim Thomerson took, the sidekick role when it should have been reversed. But whatever, he'd get the hero role later on. So unfortunately, just because of the whateverness of the movie and it's kind of lollygagging and just being the running time here says 84 minutes, just like so many future full moon movies. I mean, that's very slow crawl closing credits and obviously full credited opening credits. So it should be noted that in 3D, the title is really cool, like shush, and then shush. That gimmick really works great in 3D. So unfortunately, just because of the lollygagging and just basically no real, I don't know. The story being underwhelming, the performances being underwhelming, everything pretty much being underwhelming. I guess I can only really go 1.5 stars out of 4 stars for Metalstorm, which is not the destruction of Jared-Syn. It's more like the disappearance or teleportation of Jared-Syn at the end of the movie. The bad guy in this, relatively lame chase, which really shows the movie's budget or lack thereof on these whatever speeder cars, fly cycles, plane cycle, whatever the hell they call them. Jared-Syn opens up this portal and he flies into the portal and just disappears, kind of setting up a sequel that unfortunately or fortunately never happened. So not a very, do I regret getting it? Nah, because the 3D is what kind of really saves this movie in a lot of ways. So let's just get on to the 3D Blu-ray review and also just the Blu-ray review. So obviously, as I've already said, Scream Factory, / Shout Factory just recently released this. It's actually got 2 discs, which I thought, I can't remember. I think the Amityville 3D is on 1. So you've actually got 2 discs in this case. Obviously your 3D disc is movie only, if I remember. And Metalstorm, the 2D version is the one with the special features. So you've got 2 discs, 2D disc, 3D disc. Special features on 2D disc. I'll just show you the back of the box while I read off these special features. New high definition transfer presented in both 2D and 3D. New High Noon at the End of the Universe featurette, including interviews with Charles Band, the blah blah blah. You can see it on the screen, which is actually 42 minutes long, and it's done by, was it Ballyhoo Productions or whatever. Pretty good. I mean, the only people that aren't really interviewed are, of course, Kelly Preston's not gonna. Is that her name? Yeah. Really, probably she's not gonna stoop so low as to talk about this movie, which she probably would like to forget anyway. And of course, the bad guy, I think the guy who played him is either dead or, I don't know, he looks old in this movie, so he's probably dead, but regardless, he's not in there. But everyone else pretty much, that I can think of really makes an appearance, even if it's just brief, even Richard Band and stuff, to come by and talk about the production. So 42-minute, retrospective featurette. And then you got an extensive promotional and behind-the-scenes gallery, of which I didn't bother looking at. Radio spot, which I heard, which is funny. Theatrical trailer, which is funny. Now, it is said in the, the retrospective, behind-the-scenes thingy that the trailer for this movie was actually, if I understand correctly, the very first time there's actually been a trailer that was presented before Jaws 3D. This first time a movie trailer has actually been in 3D. So I didn't look at the 3D disc, but it'd be cool if they offered the trailer in 3D, but I don't think it's on the 3D disc. I can't confirm or deny that. I didn't look for it on the 3D disc, but in most, I would say better chance than not, you only have the 2D trailer, but I don't know if it's on. Yeah, so I only watched the 3D version of this movie. 3D, it's said before the movie actually starts that there's problems, which there is. I mean, there's occurrences, during some of the brighter scenes in the desert and stuff, where one of the eyes, I think it's more like the left eye, or one of the eyes, will have like a dark spot, like a dark portion of the screen or something like that, and just for certain shots and stuff like that, which they acknowledge before the movie starts, and of course they did what they claimed to be their best job they could to make this to make this presentation good. For the most part, the 3D works pretty bangishly. There's a lot of stuff that looked like it was just misaligned or whatever. It kind of made you just have to close your eye. Just like it's a shot-by-shot situation. I'd say the majority of the movies, the 3D is fine. But maybe there's 25% of it, or 20% of it, or 15, whatever, of shots that I have to like close one of your eyes just because it looked like it was not lined up correctly, and it just kind of looked like it was almost reverse 3D. Like, I don't know. There's some shots that didn't work out, but there's a lot of shots of, like I say, the kind of the 3D gimmick stuff deliberately coming at the screen. One of the best 3D elements in the movie, the 3D version, is this just nonsensical, funny. It'd be funny to watch it in 2D. This part where the hero or someone just drives away and they kind of do a track, into this this just whatever desert little tree thing that's just like this, and they'll just do track into it because it's the closer they get to it, the branches are sticking out. That's probably like the best 3D part of the movie, which has nothing to do with the movie. It's just like, hey, there's this tree here. Let's move camera closer to it and have a cool 3D effect. I thought because they were going closer to it, like it was actually some kind of an alien tree thing, like it was going to have a point to move into it, but no, they were just moving into this tree thing because it would offer a good 3D moment, which it does, like probably one of the best in the movie. Later on, this movie obviously predates Tremors. Later on there'll be some very funky, goofy looking hand puppeted, like, desert monster things that come out and grab our heroes when Tim Thomerson's paired up with this guy at some point in the movie. So the 3D gags work fantastically. It's been said that Charles Band did a couple. I mean, I know he did Parasite before he did this, which I kind of hope Shout Factory will release in 3D as well. I'm not sure if I've seen that movie or not. Obviously the movie's not supposed to be very good, but as someone said in the retrospective documentary, the 3D in it is good. Just like this, the movie's really not that good, but the 3D in it is good. If this movie was only 2D, I would have probably kind of been bummed that I got it, but the 3D kind of, makes up for the fact that the movie's not so good. There's definitely a lot of, in-your-face 3D moments, which, are appreciated, something they did in, obviously, the 50s and the early 80s when 3D came back. So overall, I mean, I can't really recommend the movie, but the Blu-ray is more or less recommendable. I seen, like, in the, the documentary, they showed 2D shots of the movie, and obviously towards the sides of the screen, just like with Amityville 3D and Jaws 3D and stuff like that from this early 80s of 3D, the 2D counterparts, look funky just because, I don't know, just the reason why, like, towards the sides of the frame or whatever, like it'd be like the focus would go out of focus. So that reminds me of another thing. There's a shot in the movie in the 3D version where it looked like one of the, like the left eye was out of focus and the right eye was in focus. So, but like I say, the anomalies in the 3D version are only like on a shot-by-shot basis, where it's not like a whole scene will be, you know, screwed up or something like that, 3D. It's just a shot-by-shot basis. So every now and then you'll have a shot that'll just, you'll have to close an eye for it to not die or whatever and stuff like that. So, the best thing about this movie in a lot of ways is the cover is fantastic and stuff like that. So that's pretty much my review of Metalstorm, which is a fantastic title. Like I said, I don't know what the hell it's referring to, the metal arm with metal vehicles. But unfortunately, more or less lackluster. Charles Band directorial effort. Unfortunately, he wasn't really known for doing that amazingly fantastic stuff. But I mean, obviously, it's rated PG, so it's kind of aimed towards kids or whatever. So for a kid, I can see this being enjoyable for a kid or whatever. So, a lot of relatively slow chase scenes, 3D with vehicles blowing up and falling off of cliffs and rolling over and blowing up for no reasons and stuff like that. So anyway, thank you very much for watching my review, movie/Blu-ray review of Metalstorm, The Destruction of Jared-Syn. And as always, we'll catch you next time.